The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with over 1,000 representatives from across the stars. Massive pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with the light of distant nebulas. Flags of ancient species hung from the walls, their colors faded by 10,000 years of history. Ambassador Hannah Park stood at the human podium. It was the smallest podium in the hall, placed at the very back, near the doors. For 300 years, this had been humanity's place. Near the exit, easy to ignore, she watched the voting lights flicker across the massive display screen. Red light after red light, denied, 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 the motion to grant. Humanity full membership in the Galactic Council had failed for the 14th time. High Arbiter Vorel, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, rose from his central throne. His voice echoed through the hall like rolling thunder. The motion fails. Humanity remains a provisional member. Their application may be renewed in 50 standard years. 50 years. Another 50 years of being told they were too young, too emotional, too primitive. Hannah had heard these words her entire career. Her grandmother had heard them too. The other representatives began talking among themselves. Some laughed. A delegate from the Morvac Dominion made a rude gesture toward the human section. No one noticed. No one cared. Hannah pressed the button to request speaking time. The system ignored her for several minutes before finally granting her 30 seconds. She stepped forward. The hall grew slightly quieter. Some representatives looked at her with amusement, expecting anger or tears. Humans were known for their emotions, after all. "Thank you for your decision," Hannah said. Her voice was calm and clear. "We understand. We wish you well." She turned and walked out of the hall. The representatives watched her go with confusion. Where was the anger? Where were the demands? High Arbiter Vorel laughed and waved his hand. "Let them sulk," he said. "They will return begging for scraps within 1 cycle." The council moved on to other business. They did not notice that Hannah Park never looked back. 3 days later, Admiral Tae-yoon received the transmission he had been waiting for. He sat in the command chair of the battleship Eternal Dawn, the flagship of humanity's peacekeeping fleet. For 60 years, human ships had patrolled the dangerous borders of council space, protecting species who could not protect themselves. The vote failed, the message said. "Begin protocol, quiet night." Tae-yoon closed his eyes for a moment. He had hoped, somewhere deep in his heart, that this day would never come. But hope had limits. Patience had limits. Even human patience. He opened a channel to all human ships across the galaxy. Over 8,000 vessels, patrol ships, medical frigates, engineering platforms, cargo haulers, the invisible backbone of galactic civilization. "This is Admiral Tae-yoon," he said. "All human vessels are ordered to return to Earth space. Withdraw from all assigned posts. Complete current humanitarian missions, and then depart. Do not engage in conflict. Do not explain. Just leave." Across the stars, human crews received the order. Some cried. Some felt relief. All of them obeyed. On the planet Serati Prime, Dr. Suin Lee was the last human to leave the Navigation Control Center. For 40 years, she had maintained the beacon network that allowed safe travel between stars. She had designed most of the current system herself. Her alien colleagues watched her pack her things. "You are leaving?" asked one of them, a young technician named Ilaran. "But who will maintain the beacons?" Suyen smiled sadly. "You will have to learn. But we do not understand your systems. Then you should have asked me to teach you years ago." She picked up her bag. I offered many times. No one was interested in learning from a human. She walked to the door and stopped. "The backup protocols are in the main computer. They should keep things running for about 6 months. After that," she shrugged, "good luck." On Earth, Elder Junbeek addressed the United Council of Humanity. He was an old man now, with white hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire life fighting for humanity's place among the stars. Now he was ending that fight. "For 300 years, we gave them everything," he said. "Our technology, our soldiers, our doctors, our engineers. our food, our hope. We asked for only one thing in return: respect, a seat at the table, the right to be seen as equals. He paused and looked at the assembly. Representatives from every human colony, billions of people watching through screens across 100 worlds. They gave us nothing, Junbi continued. Not even our dignity. They laughed at us. They used us. They placed us at the back of their great hall and told us to be grateful for the privilege of serving them. His voice grew stronger. No more. We are leaving. Not in anger. Not in hatred. We simply refuse to give our hearts to those who see us as tools. Let them learn what our hearts were worth. The assembly voted unanimously. Humanity would withdraw from all galactic affairs. Every human would return home. Every human technology would be recalled. Every human hand would be pulled back, and they would leave quietly. No speeches. No demands. No warnings. Just silence. High Arbiter Varel learned of the human withdrawal 2 weeks later. An aide mentioned it during a routine briefing. The humans are leaving their posts, the aide said. All of them? It appears so, Varel laughed. Dramatic children. They will return when they realize how much they need us. Where else will they get advanced technology? Where else will they find protection? Should we send a message? Ask them to reconsider. Why would we do that? Varel leaned back in his throne. Let them go. The galaxy functioned for millions of years before humans crawled out of their caves. It will function without them. The aide bowed and left. Varel returned to more important matters. Trade agreements. Territory disputes. Ancient politics between ancient species. He did not notice that the lights in his chamber flickered slightly. He did not know that the power systems in the council building were designed by human engineers. He did not realize that the food he ate was grown using human agricultural techniques. He did not understand that the peace he enjoyed was maintained by human soldiers. He would learn. They would all learn. But by then, the humans would be gone. In the darkness between stars, 8,000 human ships turned toward home. They left behind empty stations, silent beacons, and a galaxy that had never bothered to say thank you. Ambassador Hannah Parks stood at the window of her transport ship, watching the Council's space station shrink into the distance. She had given 30 years of her life to that place. 30 years of being ignored. 30 years of fighting for a seat at a table that never wanted her. Now it was over. She felt no anger, no satisfaction, only a deep, quiet sadness. We tried, she whispered to no one. We really tried. The ship jumped to hyperspace, and the stars blurred into lines of light. Humanity was going home. 3 months passed, and the galaxy began to notice strange things. Trade Minister Kethis sat in his office, staring at numbers he could not understand. The economic reports made no sense. Trade between the core worlds had dropped by 12%. Shipping delays had increased by 30%. Insurance costs for merchant vessels had doubled. How is this possible? He asked his assistant. There have been no wars, no disasters, no changes in policy. His assistant, a nervous young creature with too many eyes, shifted uncomfortably. Minister, I have been investigating. It appears that many of our trade routes relied on human navigation beacons. When the humans left, they turned them off, then turned them back on. We cannot, Minister. We do not understand how they work. Our engineers have tried. The systems are not responding. Kethis felt a cold sensation in his stomach. What about the backup routes? Most of them pass through sectors that were patrolled by human peacekeeping ships. Without those patrols, pirate activity has increased by 400%. Merchant captains are refusing to use those routes. 400%? Kethis stared at the number. He had never paid attention to the human patrols before. They were just there, like air or water. You did not think about them until they were gone. On the medical station above Ilaran Prime, doctors watched helplessly as patients died. A plague had broken out on the planet's surface. It was a simple disease, easily treated with the right medicine. But the medicine was manufactured by human pharmaceutical companies. Send a request to Earth, the head doctor ordered. We have sent 17 requests, his assistant replied. There is no response. Then contact other suppliers. There are no other suppliers. The humans were the only ones who produced this medicine. They developed it themselves 50 years ago, when a similar plague struck the Vorath system. They gave it to us for free. The head doctor remembered that day. Human medical ships had arrived within hours. Human doctors had worked without sleep for weeks. They had saved millions of lives and asked for nothing in return.
Now, on Aileron Prime, 3,000 people were dying every day.
And no one was coming to help. In the darkness of space, Warlord Grath received reports from his scouts. The massive warrior sat in his throne room, surrounded by weapons and trophies from 100 conquered worlds. For 2 centuries, the Morvac Dominion had been held back by the threat of human intervention. The humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were stubborn. They fought with a fury that Grath had learned to respect. The border sectors are undefended, his scout reported. The human patrol ships are gone. The automated defense systems are failing. The council forces, stretched thin, my lord. They are dealing with internal problems, trade disruptions, supply shortages. They have pulled back from the outer territories. Grath smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. How long before we could reach the Serati system? 6 weeks, my lord. If we move quickly, then we move quickly. The Morvac war machine began to wake. Ships that had sat dormant for decades were powered up. Soldiers who had grown old waiting for war felt young again. The age of conquest was returning. In the council chambers, Scholar Illith requested permission to address the assembly. She was ancient, even by galactic standards. Her species had been among the founders of the council 10,000 years ago. She had seen empires rise and fall. High Arbiter Varel granted her request with barely hidden impatience. Speak quickly, Scholar. We have important matters to discuss. Illith moved slowly to the center of the hall. Her body was frail, but her eyes were sharp. I have studied humans for 300 years, she said. I have read their history. I have learned their languages. I have walked on their homeworld. And, Vorel asked, what wisdom do you offer? You made a terrible mistake. The hall fell silent. No one spoke to the High Arbiter that way. You measured humans by their technology, Illith continued. You saw that their ships were slower than ours. Their weapons were weaker. Their lifespans were shorter. You concluded that they were a lesser species. She shook her head slowly. You should have measured them by their hearts. Their hearts. Varel laughed. What does that mean? It means that humans do not help others because they are strong. They help others because they cannot stop themselves. It is in their nature. When they see suffering, they must act. When they see injustice, they must fight. They cannot look away. Illith pointed at the empty human podium at the back of the hall. For 300 years, they gave us that gift, and we spat on it. We told them they were not good enough. We told them to wait, to be patient, to earn our respect. And they tried. They tried so hard. Her voice grew sad. Now they are gone. And we will learn what their hearts were worth. Varel waved his hand dismissively. Emotional nonsense. The humans were useful, nothing more. We will find others to do their work. Will you? Illith asked. The navigation beacons are failing. Trade is collapsing. A plague is spreading on Aileron Prime. The Morvac are mobilizing. And these are only the first signs. We will adapt. We always have. Perhaps. Illith turned to leave. But the humans had a saying. They called it being taken for granted. It means that you do not notice what someone gives you until they stop giving it. She looked back at Varel one last time. You took them for granted, High Arbiter. Now you will learn what that costs. Commander Nexel, head of the Council's military forces, spent that night reviewing defense reports. The more he read, the more worried he became. The human peacekeeping fleet had been small compared to the great armadas of the elder species. Their ships were considered outdated. Their weapons were not impressive. For decades, military experts had dismissed them as a minor support force, but those minor ships had been everywhere. They had patrolled the borders. They had escorted merchant convoys, They had responded to distress calls. They had done the boring, unglamorous work that no one else wanted to do. Now Nexel looked at a map of Council space and saw holes. Dozens of sectors with no patrol coverage, hundreds of trade routes with no protection, thousands of stations with no emergency response capability. How did we not notice this? He asked. His aide shrugged. The humans never complained, sir. They just did their jobs. And now? Now we need to fill those gaps with our own forces. But we do not have enough ships, or trained crews, or supplies. Nexel stared at the map. The holes looked like wounds in the body of civilization. How long do we have? Before what, sir? Before everything falls apart. Ada was silent for a long moment. I do not know, sir. But I think it has already started. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, far from Council space, a human cargo ship picked up a faint distress signal. Captain Minho Kung listened to the transmission. It was from an alien freighter, attacked by pirates, drifting without power. That is not our problem anymore, his first officer said. We have orders. Return to Earth. Do not engage. Minho knew she was right. The orders were clear. Humanity was done saving a galaxy that did not want to be saved. But the signal kept playing. Voices crying for help. Children screaming in the background, sir. His first officer asked. Your orders? Minho closed his eyes. He thought about all the years he had spent protecting people who looked down on him. He thought about the Council's vote. He thought about Ambassador Park walking out of that hall with her head held high. He thought about what it meant to be human. Change course, he said quietly. We will help them, sir. Our orders. I know our orders. But I cannot stop being who I am. He looked at his crew. Can you? No one answered. No one needed to. The ship turned toward the distress signal. Even in leaving, the humans could not stop caring. It was their greatest strength, and perhaps their greatest weakness. 8 months after the humans left, the Sarati system fell. Warlord Groth stood on the bridge of his flagship as his fleet surrounded the 3 habitable planets. The defenders had fought bravely, but bravery was not enough. Without human support ships, without human-designed shield generators, without human medical frigates to evacuate the wounded, the Sarati had no chance. They are requesting surrender terms, his communications officer reported. Grath smiled. Tell them there are no terms. The Morvok take what they want. The bombardment began at dawn. By sunset, 40 million people were dead. News of the massacre spread across the galaxy like fire. The Council emergency session lasted for 3 days. Representatives screamed at each other. Old alliances cracked. Old hatreds resurfaced. Where were the defense fleets? Demanded the Sarati ambassador, her voice breaking with grief. We sent what we could, Commander Nexel replied. But our forces are stretched too thin. We cannot be everywhere. The humans were everywhere. For 200 years, they protected our borders. Where are they now? Silence filled the hall. Everyone knew the answer. High Arbiter Varel tried to restore order. We must focus on the present situation. The Morvac advance must be stopped. With what? Another representative shouted. Half our ships cannot navigate safely because the beacon network is failing. Our supply lines are broken. 3 more species have petitioned to leave the Council. You have destroyed us, Varel. I have done nothing. Exactly. You did nothing when the humans begged for respect. You did nothing when they left. And now you do nothing while our civilization burns. The Council dissolved into chaos. No decisions were made. No plans were formed. The great galactic government, which had maintained peace for 10,000 years, is eating itself alive. On the agricultural world of Ven Prime, the crops were dying. For 60 years, human specialists had managed the planet's complex ecosystem. They had introduced new techniques, new seeds, new technologies that tripled food production. Ven Prime had become the breadbasket of the entire sector. But the humans were gone, and no one else understood their methods. The soil chemistry was wrong. The irrigation systems were failing. Strange diseases attacked plants that had been engineered to resist them. The local farmers tried everything they knew, but their knowledge was not enough. "We need human help," the planetary governor pleaded in her message to the council. "Millions will starve without them." The council had no humans to send. Within 2 months, famine swept across Ven Prime. Then it spread to the dozen worlds that depended on its food exports. Refugee ships filled the space lanes. Riots broke out on stations that could not handle the flood of desperate, hungry people. In her laboratory on Earth, Dr. Suyin Lee watched the news feeds with tears running down her face. She saw the faces of starving children. She saw the burning cities. She saw the bodies floating in space. "We could help them," she said to her colleague. "We have the knowledge. We have the resources." Her colleague, a young engineer named Doan, shook his head. "We were ordered to stay home. The council must solve its own problems." But those are not council problems. Those are people. Real people, dying because of politics. They are the same people who laughed at us, who called us primitives, who refused to learn our names. Suhin looked at him. "Does that mean they deserve to die?" Doan had no answer. Suhin turned back to the screen. A reporter was interviewing a refugee mother holding a sick child. The mother was crying, begging for help that would not come. "We did not want this," Suyan whispered. "We just wanted a matter." But wanting something and accepting its consequences were different things. Humanity had withdrawn in dignity. Now they had to live with what that dignity cost. On the patrol ship Silent Wind, Captain Minho Kong had stopped counting the distress signals. There were too many. Every day, dozens of calls for help came from Council space. Ships under attack. Stations losing life support. Colonies facing disaster. And every day Minho had to choose. Which ones to answer? Which ones to ignore? "Sir, there is a hospital ship from the Ilaran system," his communications officer reported. "They are under attack by pirates. 200 patients on board. How far? 6 hours at maximum speed." His ship was already low on fuel. His crew was exhausted. They had been running rescue missions for 3 months, in secret, against direct orders. What about council response? No council ships within range. The nearest patrol is 2 days away. 2 days. The hospital ship would be destroyed in 2 hours. Minho made his decision. Set course. Maximum speed. His first officer, Lieutenant Unicho, approached him quietly. "Sir, we cannot keep doing this. We are running out of supplies. Our crew needs rest. And if command finds out what we have been doing, ... I know." Minho looked at the screen showing the hospital ship's location. "Because someone has to. Because if we do not help them, no one will. Because being human means something, Yuna. It means we do not walk away from people who need us. Even people who do not deserve our help. Everyone deserves help. That is what makes us different from them." Yuna was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. "I will prepare the boarding teams," as the Silent Wind raced toward the hospital ship. A small fleet of human vessels was conducting similar missions across the galaxy. Officially, they did not exist. Officially, every human ship was safely behind the border. But humanity had never been good at following rules when lives were at stake in the council chambers. High Arbiter Varel faced a vote of no confidence. His support had collapsed. Species that had followed him for centuries were now calling for his removal. "This is not my fault," he insisted. "The humans chose to leave. I did not force them. You gave them no reason to stay," Scholar Illith replied. "For 300 years, you treated them like servants. You mocked their requests. You ignored their contributions. You made them feel worthless. They were a young species. They had to prove themselves. They proved themselves every day. Every ship they repaired. Every life they saved. Every war they prevented. They proved themselves 1,000 times. And you were too blind to see it." The vote was held. Varel lost by a margin of 3-1. As he walked out of the chamber for the last time, he passed the empty human podium. For a moment, he stopped and stared at it. "Do you finally understand?" Illith asked, appearing beside him. Varel was silent for a long time. I thought they needed us, he finally said. I thought that was why they stayed. Because they needed our technology, our protection, our approval. And now I see the truth. They never needed us. We needed them. He looked at Illith with something like fear in his eyes. What have we done? You destroyed something precious. Something that cannot be rebuilt with treaties or apologies. Illith turned away. You destroyed their trust. Varel watched her go. Then he looked at the empty podium again. Somewhere behind that podium, 300 years ago, a young human ambassador had stood for the first time. Nervous, hopeful, ready to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Varel could not remember her name. He had never bothered to learn it. Now he wished he had. Across the galaxy, the fractures spread deeper. More systems fell to the Morvac. More worlds starved. More refugees fled homes that no longer existed. The great civilization of the Galactic Council, which had seemed eternal, was dying, and somewhere beyond the border, humanity watched. They did not celebrate. They did not gloat. They simply waited, and mourned for what could have been. The galaxy had pushed them away. Now the galaxy was learning. Why, that was a mistake. But learning and surviving were different things, and time was running out. 14 months after humanity left, a single ship crossed the border into human space. It carried no weapons. It flew no battle flags. It broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. This is former High Arbiter Varel, requesting permission to speak with the representatives of Earth. I come in peace. I come to beg. The message reached Admiral Taeyun's flagship within minutes. Taeyun read it 3 times before responding. Let him through, he ordered. Escort him to Station 7 and inform Ambassador Park. Varel's ship was small and damaged. The journey through lawless space had been dangerous. Without human patrols, even the most powerful leaders were vulnerable. As his ship docked at the human station, Varel looked out the window at the fleet assembled around him. Human warships. Human carriers. Human supply vessels. All waiting. Already, he had underestimated them. He saw that now. The humans had not simply left. They had prepared. They had rebuilt. They had grown stronger while the galaxy fell apart. Ambassador, Anna Park, was waiting for him in the station's conference room. She looked older than he remembered. Tired, but her eyes were still sharp. Hi, Arbiter, she said. No warmth in her voice. No hatred either. Just exhaustion. I am no longer High Arbiter, Varel replied. I was removed from office 6 months ago. I know. I watched the vote. Varel sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I served on the council for 30 years, Hannah finally said. I worked harder than any ambassador in history. I learned every protocol, every tradition, every custom. I fought for humanity every single day. She leaned forward. Do you know how many times you spoke to me directly? Varel shook his head. Once you asked me to move because I was blocking your view of the main screen. She smiled without humor. You've never learned my name. After 30 years, you did not know who I was. I know your name now, do you? Or did someone tell you before you came here? Varel could not lie. Someone told me. Hannah nodded. That is the problem. That has always been the problem. You see us, but you do not see us. We were furniture to you. Useful objects? Not people. I understand that now. Understanding is not the same as feeling. You understand because your civilization is burning. Would you understand if it was not? Varel had no answer. A door opened, and Elder Junebeak entered the room. He moved slowly, supported by a cane. His white hair was thinner than before, his face more lined, but his presence filled the room. Elder Beak, Varel said, rising to his feet. I am honored. Sit down. Junebeak's voice was cold. I did not come here to receive your honors. I came to hear what you have to say, Varel said. He took a deep breath, and then he did something he had never done in his entire life. He told the truth. The council is dying, he said. The Morvac have conquered 12 systems. 40 billion people are under their control. Another 30 billion are refugees. The trade networks have collapsed. The beacon system is failing. We cannot feed our people. We cannot protect them. We cannot even communicate with many of our own worlds. He looked at his hands. We tried to fix it ourselves. We thought we were smart enough. We thought our ancient wisdom would save us. But we were wrong. We built our civilization on foundations we did not understand. Human foundations. His voice cracked. I am not here to offer excuses. I am here to beg. Please, help us. If not for us, then for the billions of innocent people who did nothing wrong. Children who have never heard of the council vote. Families who never laughed at humans. People who are dying because of decisions they never made. Silence filled the room. Junebeek studied Varel for a long moment. Then he turned to Hannah. What do you think? I think he is sincere, Hannah said. I also think sincerity is not enough. I agree. Junebeek looked back at Varel. I have one question for you. One question that will determine everything. Ask, if we return and save your civilization, will you learn? Will you truly change? Or will you simply wait until the crisis passes and then return to your old ways? Will you treat the next young species the same way you treated us? Varel opened his mouth to answer, but Junebeek raised his hand. Do not answer yet. Think carefully. Because if you lie to me, I will know. And if you lie, we will not come. Varel closed his mouth. He sat in silence for a long time. Minutes passed. The old man waited with infinite patience. Finally, Varel spoke. I do not know. Wait. Junebeek raised an eyebrow. You do not know if you will change? I do not know if we can change. We have been the same for 10,000 years. We have always believed that age equals wisdom, that older species deserve more respect than younger ones. That is not a policy. It is who we are. He looked at Junebeek with something like despair. But I know this. We were wrong. We looked at humanity and saw primitives. We should have seen teachers. You showed us kindness, and we called it weakness. You showed us compassion, and we called it foolishness. You showed us what civilization should be, and we were too arrogant to learn. Tears formed in Varel's eyes. I cannot promise that we will change. But I can promise that I will try. And I can promise that there are others like me. Others who have seen the truth. Others who are ready to learn. He bowed his head. That is all I have to offer. The truth. Junebeek was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to the window, looking out at the stars. 300 years ago, he said, a young woman named Hannah's grandmother stood before your council for the first time. She was so nervous she could barely speak, but she believed in something. She believed that humanity could help the galaxy. She believed that we could make a difference. He turned back to Varel. Your council laughed at her. They put her podium in the back of the hall. They ignored her requests. They told her to wait, to be patient. To prove herself, his voice hardened. She spent her entire life proving herself. So did her daughter. So did her granddaughter, who sits in this room. 3 generations of women, fighting for respect that never came. He walked slowly toward Varel. We did not leave because we were angry. We left because we finally understood the truth. We were trying to earn the love of people who would never love us. We were destroying ourselves for people who did not care. He stood directly in front of Varel now. So here's my answer. We will return. We will help you. We will save your civilization if we can. Varel's face lit up with hope. But not as servants, Junebeek continued. Not as tools. Not as lesser beings grateful for scraps of approval. We will return as equals. Full partners in a new galactic order. And we will not just save you. We will change you. He extended his hand. Do you accept? Varel looked at the hand. A human hand. Smaller than his own. Weaker. Attached to a species that had been dismissed as privies. He took it. I accept. In the back of the room, Hannah Park finally allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness. Not from anger. From hope. After 30 years, she finally had hope. The door opened again, and Captain Minho Kong entered with a group of alien refugees. Men, women, and children his crew had rescued over the past months. Living proof that humanity had never truly abandoned the galaxy, Junebeak looked at them and smiled. "We never stopped caring," he said. "That is who we are. That is what makes us human." He turned back to Varel. "Now let us go save your galaxy, together." Outside the station, the human fleet began to move. 8,000 ships, pointing toward Council space. They were going home. Not as servants, as equals. Finally, as equals. 18 months after humanity left, they returned. Admiral Taeyun's fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Morvac-occupied zone. 8,000 ships arranged in perfect formation. They were not the largest fleet in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they flew together with a unity that no other species could match. Warlord. Grath received word of their arrival within minutes. He stood in his war room surrounded by generals and advisors staring at the tactical display. "The humans have returned," his scout reported. "Their fleet is holding position at the border of the Serati system." Grath felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. How many ships? 8,000 confirmed. More arriving every hour. That is not enough to defeat us. "We have 12,000 ships in this sector alone." The senior general, an old warrior named Torvax, shook his head. "Numbers do not tell the whole story, my lord. I fought against humans 40 years ago, during the border skirmish of Sector 7. We outnumbered them 3-1. And we lost, not because they were stronger, because they would not stop. Every time we destroyed one of their ships, the crew fought on with escape pods, with rescue boats, with their bare hands if necessary. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They fought until there was nothing left." Torvax looked at his lord with old, tired eyes. "Other species fight to win. Humans fight because they believe they are right. That is a very different thing." Grath studied the display again. The human fleet was not advancing, not retreating, just waiting. Then a transmission came through. Admiral Taeyun's face appeared on the main screen. He was an old man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore no medals, no decorations. His uniform was simple and clean. "Warlord Grath," Taeyun said, "I am Admiral Taeyun of the United Human Fleet. I have a message for you. Speak, we're back. And we remember why you feared us." Grath laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Pretty words. But words do not win wars. No, they do not." Taeyun leaned forward slightly. "I am not here to threaten you. I am here to give you a choice. Withdraw from all occupied systems within 48 hours. Return the prisoners you have taken. Pay reparations to the families of those you killed. And never cross this border again. And if I refuse, then we will come for you. Not today, not tomorrow, but we will come. Every human ship, every human soldier, every human who has spent the last 18 months watching you slaughter innocent people. We will come and we will not stop until there is nothing left of your dominion." Taeyun's voice grew softer, but somehow more dangerous. "We did not want this war. We wanted peace. We wanted friendship. We wanted to build something beautiful together with all the species of the galaxy. But you chose blood instead. So blood it will be." He paused. 48 hours, Warlord? Use them wisely." The transmission ended. Grath stood in silence, staring at the blank screen. His generals watched him, waiting for orders. "My lord," Torvax asked, "what do we do?" Grath thought about his empire. 12,000 ships, 100 billion soldiers, weapons capable of destroying worlds, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and across the border, 8,000 human ships waited. Not attacking, not fleeing. Just waiting with that terrible patience. Grath had conquered a dozen species. He had broken armies that outnumbered him. He had never retreated in his entire life, but he had also never faced an enemy that frightened him until now. "Begin withdrawal," he said quietly, "my lord. You heard me? Pull back all forces. Release the prisoners. Send compensation to the families. He turned away from the screen. The humans are not worth the cost. Within 48 hours, every Morvac ship had retreated from occupied space. The prisoners were freed. The conquered worlds were returned. For the first time in 2 centuries, the Morvac Dominion had been defeated, and not a single shot had been fired. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the representatives gathered for the most important vote in 10,000 years. The new charter lay on the central table, a document that would reshape galactic civilization. Elder June Beak read the key provisions aloud. All species are equal, regardless of age or technological development. No species may be denied full membership based on how long they have existed. All decisions require unanimous consent from affected parties. And the Council will establish a humanitarian corps dedicated to helping those in need, regardless of politics or borders. The hall was silent. These were revolutionary ideas. They challenged everything the Council had believed for millennia. Scholar Illith rose to speak. I have lived for 9,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species destroy themselves with war and greed and arrogance. And I have learned one truth. She looked at the human delegation, seated now at the center table, no longer in the back. The measure of a civilization is not its technology, not its age, not its power. The measure of a civilization is how it treats those who need help. She bowed to June Beak. The humans understood this from the beginning. We are only now learning. I vote yes to the new charter. One by one, the other species voted. Some hesitated. Some debated among themselves. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. The new charter passed. Ambassador Hannah Park stood to address the assembly. She was no longer at the small podium in the back. She stood at the central speaking platform where high arbiters had spoken for thousands of years. We did not leave to punish you, she said. We left because we forgot our own worth. We had spent so long trying to prove ourselves that we forgot who we were. We forgot that our value did not depend on your approval. She looked around the hall at the faces of 1,000 species. Now we remember, and we are not the same people who left. We are stronger. We are wiser. We are ready. She smiled, and for the first time in years, the smile reached her eyes. Let us build something new together. Not an empire of the ancient, not a hierarchy of the powerful, a community of equals, a family of strangers, a galaxy that takes care of its own. The hall erupted in applause. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries now cheered for them. Former enemies embraced. Old grudges were set aside. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was a beginning. Captain Minho Kong was promoted to lead the new humanitarian corps. His first mission was to coordinate relief efforts for the worlds devastated by the Morvac occupation. Human ships worked alongside alien vessels, delivering food and medicine and hope. Dr. Suin Lee returned to the Beacon Network, but this time she did not work alone. Alien engineers stood beside her, eager to learn. She taught them everything she knew, holding nothing back. The network would never fail again, because now everyone understood how it worked. Elder June Beak was offered the title of Supreme Arbiter, the highest position in the new government. He refused. I am an old man, he said. My time is ending. This new galaxy belongs to the young. Let them lead it. Instead, he returned to Earth. He spent his final years in a small house by the sea, watching the waves and remembering the journey that had brought humanity to the stars. On the day he died, representatives from every species in the galaxy came to pay their respects. They stood in silence as his body was laid to rest, honoring the man who had taught them what dignity meant. Varel was there, standing in the crowd. He had spent the last 2 years working to repair the damage he had caused. He had learned every human name on the council. He had studied human history, human culture, human art. He had tried, in his own small way, to understand. As the ceremony ended, Hannah Park approached him. He forgave you, she said. Before he died, he told me. He forgave all of you. Varel felt tears on his face. I do not deserve forgiveness. No, you do not. That is what makes it forgiveness. She looked at the grave, where flowers from 100 worlds covered the earth. He used to say that humanity's greatest gift was not our technology or our courage. It was our ability to hope, to believe that tomorrow could be better than today, to love people who did not love us back. She turned to Varel. That is what we gave you. Not ships or weapons or medicine. Hope. The hope that the galaxy could change. That ancient hatreds could heal. That strangers could become family. Varel nodded slowly. I understand now. What you lost when you left, what we lost when you left. Then help us make sure it never happens again. Help us build a galaxy where no species has to beg for respect. Where every voice matters. Where every life is precious. She extended her hand. Will you help us? Varel took her hand. I will. Above them, the sky filled with ships from 100 worlds. Human and alien, old and young, powerful and weak, all flying together toward a future that none of them could. Imagine, the humans had left. Quietly, they had returned with the weight of a galaxy on their shoulders. And they had changed everything, not through force, not through revenge. Through something much more powerful. Through love. Through hope. Through the simple, stubborn belief that everyone deserves a chance. That was the human way. And now, it was the galactic way too. In the end, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.